Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Gwendy. And welcome to the January 22nd meeting of the Pinehurst Village Council. The first thing on our agenda will be the invocation by Pastor Rod Stone from Community Presbyterian Church. If we shall stand, and then that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. God, you're our creator. You have molded us like a potter molds the clay. And so we come before you knowing that you are the one to provide what we need. Because of who you are, may we seek you for wisdom and guidance as we attend to the business of this community. Help us to temper our conversations with humility and patience as we give due diligence to the work that is at hand. Give this council and the administrative staff great wisdom and understanding, insight into their efforts to discern how best to serve and create the kind of community we all desire. Provide them with strength and courage to promote the common good in all that they do. And may we as a community indeed stand together as a community, all striving for the common good. Be with us now. In your name we pray. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Somebody's moved the flag. Rod Stone, thank you so much. You are welcome to stay. You can sit where the sun is not in your eyes, maybe over here. And I know you're busy, so you might have something to do. The Boy Scouts are leaving. Boy Scouts are leaving? They'll be back. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, the first thing on our agenda, we have reports from our manager.
I just have a couple of things I'd like to cover. The first is good news that we hired our latest, newest police officer over the weekend. His name is Bogey. I hope that's not indicative of his work. Bogey's a K-9 German Shepherd, and he and his trainer, Officer Brian Gorham, are together, working together up at a training facility right now in Rocky Mount, or up around Rocky Mount, and will be coming back to join us later on this week. The second thing is I just want to commend all of our residents and businesses and everybody else with trying to come to terms with our recent changes to our recycling program. I know that's quite a shock to everybody's system. And we're doing okay with the new guidelines, but we are having some lingering challenges with what they term contamination. And what that means is things that are in the recycle carts that are not allowable recyclables. And the feedback I'm getting is that those contaminant items most often fall into one of three categories: either plastic toys or some glass. There's still some glass that's in there. And then the third category is plastic bags of various types. So just want to get the word out to folks to please try to not put that in that recycling stream so we can hopefully get to the point where the recycling business isn't costing us even more than the elevated costs that we had been projecting.
I think I'll go next. I always have to remind my husband, don't put pizza boxes in there. He puts them in there. I go take them out. So it's a little game we play, I think. 2 weekends ago, we had a duplicate bridge tournament here for 3 days, and there were probably 350 people here every day, and they love this facility. They especially love those chairs. So they will be back again and again. Rather than sit on, a regular folding chair, they love these chairs, and they love this facility. So I just wanted to mention that we had lots and lots of people from out of town, from here, and they can't believe that the facility was built 20 years ago or 21 years ago. So, okay, Kevin?
We had a Tri-Cities meeting today, and it was nice to have our partner in the Tri-Cities group is our Pinehurst, Southern Pines, and Aberdeen work group that works together. It was nice to discuss the issues with recycling with them, to work on solutions, learning new terminology, learning what the problems are, learning how to resolve them, and how to think long-term with it. So I just wanted to add what Jeff's saying, and it's a good value to have our partners to talk to on this.
Thank you, Kevin. Mr. Baldry.
Nothing, no, ma'am.
Okay. Jack?
Nothing at now, this
Okay.
time.
Judy?
After the regular council session, we will have a work session, and the library working group will be here talking about the look that we've done at what options we have for libraries in Pinehurst. And our report's out there online if you haven't, if you aren't able to stay tonight, but if you are able to stay, hopefully you'll hear some of the discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have our consent agenda, and all of these items are considered routine and can be enacted under one motion.
I move to approve all the items listed and considered routine on the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Jack Farrell and a second by John Baldry. Is there any discussion? If not, let's vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. That's unanimous. Beth?
Can I ask in the police reports?
Oh,
is
you're
the
supposed to
crime-
ask under discussion, but I'll let you do
I
it.
apologize. I feel like, it's incredible, if I read this correctly, crime's down on the calendar year of 2018, and I think that's an incredible accomplishment because, it's a lot going on. There's a lot of pressures going on in the county, and I just thought it was worth individually
Absolutely,
recognizing that.
yeah. Crime
Yes,
is never,
Year over year, the totals are down 45%.
Yeah.
To put that in maybe proper perspective and context, though, we had seen some real elevated increases
Yeah.
over the previous couple of years, so it's very good news, but it doesn't necessarily return us to where we were, say, 3 or 4 years ago.
Jeff, do you think the new required reporting system at all affected the statistics?
We've had a lot of discussion about that, John, and I think we're fairly convinced that with regard to the stats that you're looking at right now, that the answer is no. And I say that because not only have we reported all of our incidences, not really the proper technical term, this year under that new reporting system, but we went back and recodified everything that was in the database from last year under the same reporting system.
Okay, cool. I just thought it deserved individual recognition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
okay, thank you. So that takes care of the consent agenda. Next, I need a motion to adjourn our regular meeting and enter into a public hearing.
I move to recess the regular meeting and enter into a public hearing.
We have a motion by Judy Davis and a second by
I'll second that.
Kevin Drum. Any discussion? If not, let's vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. That's unanimous. Public hearing number 1 is going to be done by Natalie.
Okay, this public hearing is to receive public comments on a proposed amendment to our annexation agreement between the Village of Pinehurst and the Town of Southern Pines. This is the same annexation agreement that we spoke about at your last meeting on January the 8th. And as you may recall, Planning Director from Southern Pines was also here to provide comment in reference to the amendment to the boundary map. So you will see that the ordinance 1902 that has been drafted, the annexation agreement, and then the boundary map is the one that was adopted by the Town of Southern Pines Council on January 8th. And the only change to the annexation agreement that's being proposed is this 1.15 acre parcel on Knoll Road, which is a part of a development that the council has approved by conditional district rezoning back in September. And that's it. Are there any questions?
Okay, any questions for Natalie?
Covered them all at the last meeting, or we'd have more.
I think we did discuss this very thoroughly at the last meeting. Okay. Well, if there aren't any questions,
Public comment.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Judy. There's one person signed up to speak, and she told me before the meeting she wasn't going to sign up to speak. Okay, is there anyone here who would like to speak to this issue? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing and re-enter our meeting.
I move to adjourn the public hearing and re-enter the regular meeting.
Second?
We have a motion by John Boulder and a second by Judy Davis. Is there any discussion? If not, let's vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you, that's unanimous also, Beth. Now, at this point, we have the opportunity to discuss this issue and vote on it tonight if we'd like. We can delay it if we want, but I think we have talked about it a lot. We would be beating a dead horse. So, are we ready to consider this?
I'll move to approve ordinance 19-02, modifying an annexation agreement between the Village of Pinehurst and the Town of Southern Pines for the mutual boundary line between those two municipalities.
We have a motion by Kevin Drummond, a second by Jack Farrell. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Thank you all. That is unanimous again, Beth. Okay, next we have number 9, the balanced scorecard, and here comes Lauren.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I am here to review the proposed FY 2020 balanced scorecard, as well as the areas of focus that we're proposing for FY 2020's planning period. And we will also cover the initiative action plans that we are currently proposing for FY 2020 through FY 2024. Council, we hope to get your approval over the performance levels for the organization so that we can provide that to the senior leadership team so that they can go back and make the plans and develop plans to achieve results and plans to achieve those results. So today we'll first look at the FY 2020 balanced scorecard, and that is what is up on the screen currently. And I want to draw your attention to just a few things on the balanced scorecard. And for the public as well, we want to make sure that this is a user-friendly tool. So you all know how the council wishes to pursue our mission to promote, enhance, and sustain the quality of life for our residents, businesses, and visitors for the upcoming fiscal year. So as you will see, the mission is at the top of the balanced scorecard. That is the foundation of our strategic planning process here. And you will see we have goals listed on the balanced scorecard for what we as a village intend to do. We have strategic objectives which show how we will achieve those goals, as well as KPIs, which are key performance indicators. And this indicates how we know if we are going to achieve the goal and objectives that we state there. So that's one way to look at this balanced scorecard. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see 4 different columns. And those 4 columns include the actual results from FY 2018. It includes the estimate for where we believe we will land for FY 2019, where we project to be for FY 2020, and then what our goal would be for FY 2020. So you can see in a snapshot there, past performance, where we project to be for our performance, as well as where we hope to go. Okay? Looking at the balanced scorecard, we want to let you know that at the retreat, and I know many of you here from the audience were not necessarily there at the retreat, but council, you'll recall, we had significant discussion about some wording changes with the balanced scorecard, particularly around the wording of the goals and the strategic objectives. I hope that we have included all of those proposed wording changes that we did discuss. From that, we incorporated all of that feedback into this proposed scorecard. Also, as a reminder, the key performance indicators that are included on the balanced scorecard here that you'll see are mostly end-of-year performance measures. So these measures we look at on an annual basis to see if we have accomplished what we set out to accomplish for the year. In addition to this corporate card, we do have department scorecards that track a lot of the lead measures, those hard numbers and figures that we track on a quarterly basis as a senior leadership team to ensure that we are doing what we can do in order to achieve this corporate balance scorecard. And those, for the public to also know, those will be available on our website, a select number of those key performance indicators, hopefully in the coming months, so that we can also share some of those hard numbers, the data that we do track quarterly with the public to let you all know where we stand with our metrics. Okay. We do project our performance levels here. We look at our past performance and we base that on where we think we'll land for our projections. We set our goals by reviewing our historical performance, but also looking at other municipal benchmarks as well to make sure that our goals are in line with where we should be achieving for our performance. You'll see as you go down the balanced scorecard, in most of the cases, we're performing very well. You'll see a lot of our results here are over 90%, which is excellent results here. You'll notice there are two that fall kind of in an area where we think there would be a room for improvement. And those two areas happen to be the percent of residents satisfied with the availability of walkways and also the percent of residents satisfied with the adequacy of street lighting. Those two areas have fallen below what we would hope to be a high level of satisfaction. It's fallen below pretty regularly since surveying residents in FY 2013. Of course, you all know those are two areas that we believe the comprehensive long-range plan will provide some insight and guidance as to what the village should do going forward in those two areas, and we hope to hear more about that later this year. Does anyone have any questions on the proposed balanced scorecard at this point? And we'll get into the areas of focus in just a minute.
Council? Okay, I think we're good.
Okay, moving on to the proposed areas of focus for FY 2020. This is a document here that will show how we develop what we propose the areas of focus to be. So you will see in red on this document what management is proposing are the areas of focus for FY 2020 when it comes to where we will kind of devote attention, resources when we go through the budget process, just to make sure that we do target our resources in the appropriate areas that are most important for the Village of Pinehurst at this time. We developed this proposed areas, list of areas of focus based on the village performance gaps, based on the list of strategic challenges that you all helped develop at the strategic planning retreat, also the strategic opportunities list that we developed at the retreat. We also look at community survey areas for improvement where we think that we could fill a performance gap there based on the areas of improvement identified with that. And you'll see what we do is really map that here to the strategic objectives on the balanced scorecard to show which ones would have the most impact on all of those different areas. I will note, since the strategic planning retreat, staff has then taken the list, and I want to make a note of this. You'll see the strategic opportunities list is a little different than the one that we left off on with the strategic planning retreat. And the main difference is we added 3 more opportunities at the bottom of that list that we felt like were strategic enough to be added to the strategic opportunities list. And what we did was we went back in our, if you'll recall, our opportunities for improvement, or OFI list, to make sure that we did not miss anything in the discussion at the retreat. The three that we added were the use of water and sewer expansion to perhaps influence development around Pinehurst, to establish a municipal library as perhaps an opportunity at some point, as well as determine the need for Fire Station 93. Those were three that we did not necessarily have on the original list, but we felt like probably should rise to that opportunities list. Do you all agree on that?
I do.
The only thing we might say on number 14 is maybe we need to make that determine the need.
And it certainly is in the evaluation process right at the moment. So should it rise to
Yeah, thank
that,
you.
yep, it would be determine the need. Sure.
Well, Lauren, going back
Yes.
to, this areas of focus mapping, just because something is labeled short-term does not mean that we won't be focusing on it forever. so to speak.
Correct. Yes, that's exactly right. So all of our strategic our strategic objectives, I should say, all of those are long-term. We will always focus on those. We will never check them off the list. That's what we do to provide the quality of service here at the Village of Pinehurst.
We're
So
not
great
gonna
point.
Stop maintaining high-quality streets. So
Correct. Exactly.
people don't misinterpret that.
That's right. So we looked at the areas of focus this year, and this is a new thing for the village this year, is to set out short-term and mid-term areas of focus. The short-term meaning it's something that we see in the near term, in the FY 2020 planning period, that we will go ahead and accomplish projects or initiative action plans that are targeted toward that area of focus. Of course, there may be other implementation that follows the IAP or the project following that. And that's where it comes, Jack, you're exactly right. It's not ever going to be finished. We will continue to strive to achieve those strategic objectives going forward. The midterm we have set to be, it may begin in FY 2020, but it will span the 5-year planning period. It may span a few years. So for example, the areas of focus that we have that we are proposing, one is manage development and enforce codes and ordinances. As you'll see, that is red here, and that is listed as short-term, primarily with the plans for the comprehensive plan to be finished in FY 2020. Of course, as we've said, implementation will continue following that. We also, as you'll see in our next conversation, we do have an initiative action plan being proposed for a small area plan for Village Place. That would be something that would occur in a short-term, near-term period, and would, of course, implementation would go further beyond that. Providing interconnected pedestrian facilities is another area of focus, but we're putting that as a midterm because, of course, we hope to get more feedback from the comprehensive plan to know how to implement that going forward. But that would be something implemented incrementally over the 5-year planning period that we would need to plan for. Same goes along with maintaining high-quality streets. That is something that we are incrementally doing. Of course, last year we did increase our budget and the budget within the 5-year planning period for resurfacing. And that is something that will continue to be a focus here in the village going forward. And then the last area of focus is providing recreation programs, facilities, and cultural events. And we are saying that would be a short-term area of focus, primarily due to the construction of the community center being completed in FY 2020.
Can I add on to that? Just for clarification for everybody here, the introduction of these planning horizons is a new improvement that we made this year. And so short term, what we mean by short term is we intend to tackle that in this upcoming year's budget. Midterm would be it's part of that 5-year plan that's also going to be adopted next summer. And then long term is more consistent with thinking about our comprehensive plan, that kind of a planning horizon. As I said, this is new, and we may have some learning associated with that. And Jack, you raised a good question this afternoon that maybe has another angle that we need to look at. And that is the fact that because we call something short-term, it also might be a midterm. And maybe we need to find a way, maybe it's short/midterm or something like that, so that we know that not only are we targeting that in FY 20, but also in 21 through 24 or 5.
Throw in long-term too while you're at it.
Yeah, except, yeah, that's true, yeah. They're all long-term, really, so.
Right.
So I think that's one of the things to clarify for everybody, the focus on the points in red versus all the others. What's
Yep.
that?
So the focus on the red is when it comes to the senior leadership team's process for prioritizing budget requests that come in from the departments, primarily, and you all can probably speak up to that as well, but the departments will come in with their budget requests to go into the strategic operating plan, and this will be a helpful tool for the management team to use to help assess what can be prioritized above something else. So that's really kind of the process that's used for that.
So on number 5, protecting the environment, I know that we're sort of trying to figure out what we're going to do with recycling. Is that something that we should put as an area of focus to hopefully, I don't know that we can figure out a real strategy before
Yeah.
we move to the next budget year, but at least we'll know the impact of the current environment.
I thought in a long-term strategic retreat, we discussed we had parallel environmental things that are in different buckets, and we were trying to figure out how to gather the environmental things all in one track. So, do you remember that discussion? I mean, there was some,
For the resources, was it the,
I'm saying that this accurately describes it. I'm just saying what Judy says consistent with that, just the environmental side of it. There's a lot of things
Sure.
in there. You know, there's recycling, there's,
and I will say, because it's not an area of focus, doesn't mean that we won't accomplish work within those areas as well. So of course, there will be projects, there will be IAPs, there will be evaluations that come forward that may be urgent, right? So the recycling program may be an urgent need that we need to go ahead and evaluate what to do on that. It may not, it may not have 10 numbers going across this line to be an area of focus, right? But it could be something that's urgent and important for the village to accomplish, and that would not hold the village back from doing that.
I think it's a great observation, though, and I think, as I think back over where we've been the last several months, I think maybe this was kind of a blind spot to us, and
On spot, exactly.
I think that even at the time that we went through the retreat with all of you, maybe we didn't fully appreciate the scope and scale of the problem. And maybe it is. Maybe it should be an area of focus, because we're in a situation where right now it's hard for us to envision a way to achieve a level of performance that satisfies our customers. And we got to figure that out. So we'll come to terms with it one way or the other.
I don't see any way to avoid an investment down that track. I mean, just to put it more honest, like, there's be money spent to solve this issue. You know,
Higher operating costs alone.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, Lauren,
Yes.
in layman's terms, let me try to paraphrase something and help. This looks like there's a lot of moving parts and complex, but underneath it all, is it true? You tell me if I'm wrong. This, in fact, is the template by which, when people start to develop their budget for the next year, they should be mapping against this to see whether or not they're accomplishing these objectives. Is that correct?
That's right. So the staff, the management team, and the department heads use this. They use the goals, the objectives, strategic challenges, strategic opportunities. We use that in order to develop those requests and opportunities to come in.
That's a simple-minded way to look at it, but that's in fact exactly
I
what it
think it's
is.
a great way to look at it.
Right.
And I remembered what the conversation was in the retreat. It was, we had to educate people on stormwater on their properties, remember? And we're thinking, well, we got to educate people on recycling. The environmental education kind of should be all kind of on one track. I think that's where it came from, so.
And we'll definitely make sure that that is captured on the opportunities for improvement list, so we can, whether it's an evaluation or a project that we can go ahead and implement, that will definitely be something we've captured on that list, Kevin. That's good.
Any other questions for Lauren?
And I have one more part. So that's the first part. If y'all are okay with those, we'll move forward with The last item. Now, this is a list of what we are proposing the initiative action plans to be over the 5-year planning period. This list, there are 7 initiative action plans that we've identified on this list. And you'll see we've got the police department accreditation. That is a carry forward. That is a current IAP that we are continuing to work on. Adopting and implementing, let me zoom in on this. There we go. Adopt and implement a long-range comprehensive plan. That's also a carryover from the current fiscal year, continuing to work on that and implement the recommendations from that once we receive it. We have an IEP for a small area plan for Village Place. This is something that rose to a discussion at the strategic planning retreat, and we felt like we were given direction to go ahead and add that as an initiative action plan due to the timeliness of that as well. You'll see further down the IEP for the community center. So that is a carry forward currently that we are finishing up for this fiscal year. We have an IEP for Build Baldrige Framework Systems and Culture. And this is a carry forward. This is to continue our journey with the Baldrige Framework for Performance Excellence. We have a new IEP for expanding GIS capabilities. And this is something we've had extensive conversation on as well, an opportunity to expand those services here at the Village of Pinehurst. And then the last is a carry forward as well for implementing succession planning. That's a project that that the management team has been working on with Angie and with all the department heads to implement actually a succession planning program that was started this fiscal year. So based on this list, of course, as we go through the strategic planning process with budget and the recommendations from department heads as well, there may be other things that arise to an IEP level. So this is not the set IEP list. We will have those proposed to you once we come back with the proposed budget for you to review. But we want to make sure that we are capturing direction that we receive from you at the strategic planning retreat this year by including these on the IEP list currently. Does anyone have any questions on those? Or notice anything that was missed? I will mention, and I think I said this before, but I want to make sure everyone understands, we have a list, and it is called our Opportunities for Improvement and Innovation list. That list is a long to-do list, if you'll use layman's terms, as Jack said. It is a long to-do list, and we classify things on that to-do list by an initiative action plan, or an IAP. If you keep hearing me say the acronym, that's what it means. It may be an initiative action plan. It may be a project, which is something that can easily be implemented by a department, does not require extensive financial resources or staff resources, but could easily be done. And then an evaluation is the third classification. An evaluation means we need to study it a little bit further. And if we feel like it is something that is important to implement, then it will probably rise to the level of either a project, or perhaps you'll see it come on the IEP list in the future. So there are many other things that we will be working on besides the initiative action plan list, and we will follow that and track that on our OFI list, our Opportunities for Improvement list.
Okay, any other questions for Lauren or any other comments that you want to make? I'd just like to mention, as Jack said, this is kind of the work plan for the departments. Before we had this type of planning, and Natalie, I think, had a slide in a presentation, I felt that we were throwing darts at a dartboard. This was years ago. What are we going to fund? Well, how about this? No, how about this? This gives us an incredible structure to be able to sit down every year and say, what are the needs? What's floating to the top? How are we doing in this area? It's just given us an excellent framework to look at how we're doing our job for the citizens of Pinehurst. And I thank Natalie for bringing it to us some years ago, and thank Lauren for taking it on as her personal crusade now.
Thank you. If you have any questions with it going forward, don't hesitate to let me know. I'm happy to explain how we've gotten to the point where we are today, and look forward to it going forward. And in your packet, I believe today is a motion to approve the proposed balanced scorecard, as well as the areas of focus. We are not asking you to approve the initiative action plans yet. That would come within the budget period.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the fiscal year 2020 balanced scorecard and areas of focus as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Kevin Drum and a second by John Baldry. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll ask for your vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you very much, everyone. That's unanimous,
Lauren.
Beth. And thank you, Lauren. Before our next item, I would just like to briefly welcome Boy Scout Troop 98. I'm sorry, I downgraded you, from West End. I understand you're working on your community service badge or your community citizen badge, and but you're not going to find a lot of excitement here. There's a meeting up in Carthage, though, that I think that would be, anyway, you're here, and we're glad to have you. Welcome. Okay, our next item.
Natalie?
So this agenda item is something that came up last week. We received a letter, we were copied on a letter from Tom Robinson, the town manager in Carthage, opposing an appeal, excuse me, a staff appeal of a approval of a preliminary plat for the Laurel Ridge subdivision up Highway 15501. Contending that the subdivision that was approved, or the preliminary plat that was approved, was in conflict with the Moore County Comprehensive Transportation Plan that was recently adopted, and would result in the loss of a potential future corridor needed for some transportation, realignments of 73 and McCaskill Road, north of our village limits on Highway 15501. At council's request, I've drafted a letter of support of the town of Carthage's appeal of that preliminary plat approval, and that letter is attached in your agenda item. And at this point in time, just would ask if council has any discussion about this, or comments or questions, and if you're comfortable sending this letter, if you'd like to make some changes in support of Carthage's appeal.
So to keep the public informed, we have a copy of the, that intersection.
You can pull it up on a map if you'd like.
Help people understand.
It's the intersection where on 15501, there are two stoplights very close together, which is a very dangerous situation.
73 and McCaskill Road, is that
Yes,
correct?
exactly, yeah. And
Talking about this morning, either we have a transportation plan or we don't. And if we do,
Transportation plan contemplated straight across 73, or at least these two roads being aligned, since they may be major roads.
Right.
And it was silly to have two stoplights within X number of feet of each other.
Couple hundred yards or something, yeah.
Yeah, correct. So CTP proposal ID, I think 26, indicated an alignment of McCaskill Road and 73 right here. So you would get rid of this intersection here. And the preliminary plat that was approved does not preserve that corridor.
And we don't have a copy of the proposed subdivision plat, right?
I do not, no ma'am.
But it would preclude it as far as we know.
Right,
Correct.
right.
do you know, Natalie, if the development is on the north side of McCaskill, all of it on the north side,
It is this parcel right here, I believe.
that entire parcel?
This parcel. Yes, ma'am.
nothing against the development, it's against not honoring the transportation plan. So, I just, the nuance of that is probably really important. It's not that, development within the transportation plan's fine, so, I just don't want it to turn in we're against, another city's development. We're just for the transportation plan, It's a very big nuance, it's just it's the same, it's two sides of the coin, but it's a nuance that's important.
So in going forward, I think not only for the Village of Pinehurst, but also for the county, these approved plans are extremely important. Another aspect of the issue we're discussing is there's a Moore County land use plan. So we have a land use plan, we have a Moore County long-term plan, and now we have a comprehensive transportation plan. And I think these are very important tools for municipalities and the county to rely upon when looking at development. So if you think about us and think about the village in the springtime, we do have the transportation plan, and we're going to have our long-range comprehensive plan that has a land use. And so the elements of, I think, good governance, at least when we think about things, we're going to have the tools which I think are long overdue and well needed.
Thank you, John. Any other comments on this letter? We're really just joining in with the town of Carthage to signal our reluctance to see a large subdivision in an area where a very important transportation project will be built. Okay, any more discussion on that letter?
I think this letter communicates that nuance that I'm saying, that I just want to,
I think it does.
okay, that's all.
I think it does.
And then even maybe when we communicate in person, we could articulate that, because it's not against the development, it's for the transportation plan. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Ready, I move to authorize the mayor to sign a letter of support for the town of Carthage appeal of the Laurel Ridge subdivision to the Moore County Planning Board.
Second.
We have a motion by John Boulder and a second by Jack Farrell. Is there any further discussion? If not, let's vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Thank you very much.
Thank
That's
you.
unanimous. Thank you, Natalie. That's unanimous, Beth. Okay, next, number 11.
Yeah, I'll take this one. This is fairly brief, but kind of a housekeeping item here. We would like to see you all formally appoint John Boldry as our voting member of the Moore County Transportation Advisory Committee.
I have no issue with that.
I move to approve Resolution 19-02, appointing Mayor Pro Tem John Boldry as the new voting member for the Moore County Transportation Advisory Committee.
Second?
We have a motion by Kevin Drum and a second by Judy Davis. Is there any further discussion? If not, let's vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you all very much. That's unanimous, Beth. Let's move on to number 12. Natalie's back again.
Yes, so for those of you who have been on the council for a while, you're familiar with our trial partnership that we entered into. Is that better, Barbara, by the way? No? We're having some mic feedback, so I was going to try to get that solved.
For those of you, just for your information, our meetings are both audio and video recorded. So if someone is not speaking in the microphone, it's just dead air. And apparently we have some kind of, and Barbara gives me signals all during the meeting, because I'm the keeper of the microphones. So we're going to work this out before we move on.
It's still
I've
going.
been hearing a little bit of noise. Is that the feedback?
I'm going to come to the table and try it there.
Okay,
Let's see,
great.
see if this works. If I can get the mouse to work. Is that better?
I think so.
All right, I will come for here. Let's try again. This agenda item is to discuss a potential contract with the Moore County Convention and Visitors Bureau for a service agreement for the village to provide visitor services on behalf of the CVB at the George P. Lane Welcome Center. The memo that I've included here explains that in January of 2018, last year, this time, we entered into a trial partnership with the Convention and Visitors Bureau at their request. They had just relocated to Community Road in Pinehurst and saw an opportunity to maybe consolidate some services. So instead of them providing visitor services at their location there and us providing them just around the corner, we thought it might be a good idea to work together on this. Since then, they have, as you are aware, have hired a new Chief Executive Officer. Caleb Miles retired, and their new director, Phil Wers, has come in this fall. And so they asked that we extend the trial partnership to allow them the time to transition the leadership of their organization. And we did that. And then agreed to kind of extend it to the end of the calendar year, December 31st, and then come back and talk about terms of a potential agreement. And so attached to this agenda item, you see a staff memo that I prepared that describes a proposal. We'll go through that. We've also drafted a contract and presented that to the CVB board, and I'll share with you their feedback on that. We've also provided some information there in terms of what it costs the village to operate the Welcome Center, as well as how effective we've been at staffing during stated operating hours. And then I also provided you with this agenda item, the memo from a year ago that originally discussed the partnership. So if you look through the memo that I prepared there for you, it does give you a little bit of that background, but I want to highlight some of the key provisions of the contract terms that are being proposed. This contract that's attached to the agenda item is one that the CEO of the CVB and myself negotiated together, and the two of us were in agreement on these terms. And that proposed contract indicates that we would do a 50% cost share, and essentially that the CVB would compensate the village for providing those services on behalf of them. Our expenses at the Welcome Center approximate about $60,000 on an annual basis by the time you add salaries and benefits, operating costs, rent, utilities, etc. And all of those are detailed in that separate attachment for you. Some of the key terms of the proposed contract I outlined in the memo, the first being that we maintain consistent operating hours, because this is something that we have struggled with since the day we opened the Welcome Center, when George Lane was our mayor many, many years ago. And that is because it has primarily been operated by a pool of volunteers, very dedicated volunteers who are very giving of their time and very supportive of the village and love helping others come to love the village the way they do. But at the same time, they have obligations, and they have other volunteer responsibilities and other personal obligations. So it's always been a struggle to just kind of juggle the schedule, kind of, if you will. So we've come to the council many times over operating hours at the Welcome Center. And then back in, I believe it was July, maybe even August, we took a look again at our operating hours and said, we really want to try to be open when we say we're going to be open. And this was a key kind of requirement of the CVB of us as well, because if in the future they ever desire to become an accredited agency, that's one of the things that the accreditation examiners would look at is, are you being consistent in opening your center? So we reduced those hours. In addition, our Welcome Center coordinator, our part-time Welcome Center coordinator decided to stay home with her new baby. And so we shifted some staff around, and Jill is now down there. Since then, we've been able to stay open 99.5% of our stated operating hours. We had one shift that we did not fill due to a staff's family medical emergency. So I feel like we've been very successful in accomplishing that objective. So as you can see there, we were able to reduce a percentage of unfilled shifts from 18% down to pretty much zero. I identified several of the improvements that I think we've made at the Welcome Center here as a result of our partnership, and those are really, I would say, as a result of their requests of us. And I'll highlight some of those. We've done some additional training. We've added a kiosk survey at their request, where we can track information, get information about visitors. We report that to them on a monthly basis now. We also assist with the preparation of their welcome packets for large groups. We also market and sell their historic walking tour book that supports the Given Memorial Library, with $1 of every sale going back to that organization. Overall, we take a look. We took a look at this, and this is kind of a new format that we're proposing to kind of bring forward to council. Whenever we have an opportunity to ask ourselves, really what's the risk of pursuing the opportunity versus if we didn't pursue it, what would be the potential harm to the village. And so I've listed kind of all of those here for you. And at the end of the day, I think we as staff concluded that it is an opportunity that I think we should pursue, and I think it could be a good partnership. And so in terms of the contract approval process, I'm not asking today for council to pass any motion or approve a contract. It really is just an opportunity for you to discuss the terms, for me to ask you, do you agree with the terms that we've identified here in the contract and that the CVB CEO has agreed to? The CVB board did discuss this contract at their meeting on January 17th, and there were some questions. While they didn't say yes to these terms, they also didn't say no to these terms. So, I think, the way that I see it, and I believe Jeff, and you can speak up as well, I think the way that Jeff sees it as well too, is that I think they originally requested a 4-month trial partnership. We've extended it for a full 12 months. We've done everything that they've asked us to do. We have purchased shelving. We have made rooms. They're storing supplies at our Welcome Center that they don't have space for in their space. We've created surveys. We're tracking information. We're reporting that information. We have adjusted our staffing and our schedule in order to meet their requirement to maintain 100% operating hours. And I do feel that the village should be compensated for making those changes and improvements. And so at this point, it really is about the terms of the contract, and it's really between the council and the CVB board, I think, to see if you can come to an agreement on those terms, okay? So with that, I'll pull up the actual contract.
Natalie, is it the intent that the contract would be for one-year periods, and we would reevaluate on an annual basis?
That's our recommendation. Our recommendation is to contract for a period of 1 year and do an automatic renewal, unless either party wanted to cancel. With that said, I would say that our village attorney has looked at this contract and has approved it for legal sufficiency.
So you've you articulated what they have asked of us and that we have performed. What have we asked of the
Of them.
CVB?
So what we've asked of them is for additional training for our volunteers.
What in the past have we asked of them that we have performed during this trial period?
You mean, so I've told you what they kind of required of us. What did we?
And it looks like we performed fairly well. did we have any special requests of the CVB during
We
that period
did.
of time? And they were,
We did. And one of them was additional training for our volunteers. So they've arranged some tours, culinary tours, tours of the area so that our volunteers could be a little more knowledgeable of, places to tell our visitors to go. We had talked about doing that on a quarterly basis, and in last calendar year, they did organize 2, as opposed to 4 that I think we had hoped. We did pay for half the cost of that, and they paid for the other half, but they did organize it and facilitate it for us. We asked them for more volunteers. We thought that we would get approximately 6 new volunteers by combining forces. It didn't really pan out that way. We have 2 volunteers that work once every other month. So the amount of volunteer hours, I don't feel that, that we really got what we expected. The one thing that we did get, that it was very beneficial to the village, and, I think our staff was very appreciative of, is they have a staff person there, Emily, who's been very helpful in filling in during the transition of our Welcome Center coordinator's departure. So while she was on maternity leave, their staff actually ran the Welcome Center for a fairly significant amount of time. And I think it was a significant time, commitment on their staff's part to jump in and assist us in that way. So I personally think that having that option is good for the village. I think it's good for them. She has expressed that she enjoys, doing that and helping support us in that way. So I do think that has been actually a great benefit to us for that period of time.
no, I think a joint operating environment, there's a lot of synergy between us and the CVB, and
I
I think
agree.
that makes a lot of sense, especially if we're going to be paid for it. I have a question. So we're talking about reducing the number of days that we're open from 6 to 4. Is there anything that precludes us from being open the additional 2 days anyway? I mean, if we should find volunteers or there's some big event in town that we
There-
would like to have that?
And there's not, we actually put a provision in here. So for example, for when US kids are here, we'll open on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday.
Right, okay.
And we will open more than that. We just wanted to state the minimum,
Okay, so this is
in
the
the contract.
agreed-upon minimum between
the agreed upon
the parties.
minimum.
Okay.
Correct. Agreed upon minimum.
Is there any change in the compensation from what we started with and what you're putting into proposing for this new contract?
So
The 30,000?
I'm proposing 30,000. I did get a request from Phil to see if the council would consider an amount of $20,000.
Negotiating.
And that 30,000 comes from 50%.
Of our cost. It's half of our cost.
That this new contract begins July, right?
I actually proposed that it not become effective until July 1st.
Yeah.
Again, in good faith,
Okay, so you're giving them technically a
a
deal.
year and a half.
Already, so that's
Because
my
neither
point.
organization has budgeted for it. And so I felt like it was probably, by the time we agreed on a contract, there'd only be a couple of months left in the year, by the time it all got approved and ratified. So that was my recommendation, was to just make it effective
Sounds
July
reasonable.
1, the beginning of each of our fiscal years, to make it kind of clean.
Sounds like we have to get them to, there has to be some deadline on this because we have to make other arrangements, if not. So that's all I'm asking is it 30 days? Is it 60 days? We need this resolved.
Phil did express that he would want to go, he plans to take it back to his board for additional consideration, I think at their meeting March 28th.
It's a pretty long
March
time from now,
28th,
in my opinion.
so.
I'd like it resolved before then, to be honest with you.
Okay?
I think the offer that we made to them was very fair, and I think that they get as much benefit out of that
Absolutely, yes.
visitor center as we do.
I agree.
I think 20,000 is
Low.
not a fair
It
arrangement.
it is a partnership, it is a
Yeah.
joint partnership, and therefore, I think there's pluses and minuses on both sides, but the synergy, like I said, of the two organizations, I think is really going to be greater than the sum of the individual parts.
And I would say from an operational standpoint today, it definitely has been.
Right.
I would argue it's already 20,000 because it's a 16-month contract, not a 12-month. So in a technical sense, it's, you know, so you're giving
Because
us
of the free,
a free 6 months.
months, yeah.
So,
Okay?
So did they pay anything during the initial term? Oh, yeah.
yeah, they get 16
Yeah,
months in the
I
first year.
get that, yeah.
It was a trial period, and there was a lot of transition. We had transition on our side in terms of
Right.
our staffing. They had transition in terms of their leadership, and, you know, for that reason, we did decide to extend it.
I think we've all agreed that we should stick with the 30,000.
Stick with the 30,000,
We
okay?
want to be good partners with them, but we also want to be fairly compensated.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll relay that information to them.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thanks, Natalie.
Okay. Next, number 13, I think that's probably Jeff.
It is.
Jeff. It's a Jeff, but it's Jeff Batten.
And to put this in context, this flows out of the discussion at the last council meeting about negotiations with the county to
Right.
figure out who's going to pay for road repairs. The bottom line is, this is not an effort to end that discussion, but we are at a situation where, given the expense of having made the repair ourselves, waiting for an answer from the county, we don't have the funds available to do what we intended to do with that money. So
Exactly.
Jeff can take it from there.
Not a whole lot I need to add. That's pretty accurate.
Netted it all out.
Yeah, you know, as you know, we had these 2 road repairs back in the summer. We believe strongly that they were results of water leaks. County has acknowledged on one of those that they do accept responsibility, and we have communicated back to the county after the last council meeting, as when we discussed this, that we would accept the $9,000 restitution for one of those. But in the meantime, while we determine how to proceed on the balance of the Lakeshore Court, which was the vast majority of the cost, we still have work to do in our community. And the funds, as Jeff indicated, that we originally had allocated in this year's budget to be spent on road enhancements, i.e. root damage, sunken patches, those kinds of things where we really wanted to try to make a better impact on those kinds of issues within the community. We had to redirect those funds to this one repair at Lakeshore Court. So I'm asking for you to consider reallocating the funds out of fund balance while we try to sort out how to proceed with the county on this particular balance that still remains at odds with us on Lakeshore Court. So the amount that we're requesting is $75,000. Our cost in total for the 2 repairs was around $85,000. We got $99,000 that will be coming back in. So this kind of represents the balance of the second or Lakeshore Court repair. But if we can put that back in the budget, then we can proceed with our original intention for those funds to
Okay,
improve our roads in our community.
right. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Any other comments?
So I guess, how do we anticipate this going forward? Because, you know, if they are going to run away from supporting us on this, these will not be the only road repairs we're going to run into in the future. And do we need to do something in our budget for next year to make provision for this as a contingency fund, if you will?
I think that's a good question. I think that until we have a track record that suggests that this is going to be a fairly regular occurrence, my position would be that this is exactly the purpose for fund balance.
And in all honesty, you know, this is kind of the first time that I can recall that we're really at odds in terms of a repair, that they just have said it's not our responsibility, and we just clearly believe otherwise. Normally they proceed with making the repairs. So, yeah, in hindsight, we or in the future perhaps even, if it becomes apparent of this kind of issue, that perhaps we can sit with the county and say, well, let's bring in a forensic engineer and determine exactly what the cause is, and we both agree to go with that determination as a way to sort of, I guess, get over that hurdle if it appears that we have another one of these kind of situations that we're going to be at odds.
So that might be something you provide for in the budget, the hiring of a forensic engineer, whatever that would cost. Just to know that, because I think my concern about accepting this is that it is a precedent. But I know that it's their insurance company that denied it for them, and that's why they're saying, well, we don't, it's not our problem.
You're saying a precedent with the county, or?
Yes.
Well, again, this isn't an effort to end that discussion. This is just a recognition that we need these funds to continue to do the work that we said we're going to do in our community.
That's true, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
So it's a fund balance transfer asterisk.
I certainly would encourage us to determine, or at least have greater and more discussion about how do we want to proceed next with this particular matter. Are we going to accept their assertion that they're not responsible, or are we going to go back to the table and say, look, we feel completely different? Where can we meet on this matter and try to get it behind us? The last direction we had was, from you guys, was to take the 9,000, modify the agreement to remove Lakeshore Court, and then see if there might be, an opportunity to have further dialogue, which I think, Nancy, the mayor has had at least some conversation with the county commissioner's chair. But what is our next step is something I think we need to collectively decide. Do we accept their response, or do we continue to pursue it? And if so, in what means or manner do we choose to do so?
It sounds like, knowing that we've had good relationships with the county on previous issues like this. We apologize for being away for a while, but what's the basis for the denial at the county? What's the basis for them saying it's not their responsibility?
I think they look at the magnitude of the road collapse as being an item they feel like their water line could not have probably caused that magnitude of collapse. The collapse also extended, the road is on a hill slope, and there was a section of collapse that continued uphill from this leak. However, water gets to the second floor here under pressure too, and what's going to happen underneath the pavement and how the contours of the different layering of clays are going to move water, nobody knows. Then Randy Gould said, that it was a hot day, that day that it collapsed. We have 105 miles of other roads that didn't collapse on the same day, but they had a water leak that same day, and that's the commonality. So that I think that's their, at least from their accepting of responsibility feelings are. Their insurance denial is based on negligence. And anytime there's a water leak underground that the county would have had no knowledge or reasonable knowledge or understanding to know of it in advance, they're going to always deny it. They denied Pine Vista. The county, however, accepted responsibility for Pine Vista. So their insurance carrier wasn't going to accept responsibility for that road or be liable for that road, but the county recognized that they were indeed responsible for that road, that it was due to their water leak. Lake Shore, they just feel differently.
You have to capitalize on what Judy said about a forensic evaluation. Did the county have a civil engineer or someone technically proficient to come in or qualified to come in and make that assessment on behalf of the county, so that Randy Gould could convey that to us?
They have a county engineer on staff, Leonard McBride. He reports to Randy Gould. I think in this situation, in hindsight, had we known that it was what we felt was the obvious answer was not as obvious, or not the same, they didn't come to the same conclusion on their own, then we probably would have said, look, let's engage an independent third party to come in and give us their evaluation. That way it's, neither one of us are giving a slanted opinion, and not that I think we would, nor would they, but nonetheless, at least it is, I guess, a little more clear or a little more clean if you have an independent third party that, that would have come in. But again, at the time, standing out there looking at it, knowing that a leak had happened the same day it began to collapse, it seemed pretty obvious to us. And then when we get down to the bottom of the hill, removing the asphalt, the exact point of where all the water exited and ultimately went into the lake, creating a plume of silted material. As soon as you get past that, there's no damage to the road bed underneath, none. So,
Hey,
it's
Jeff, help
just
me
the
with this.
circumstantial evidence is pretty overwhelming.
Help me with this. Let's say that we had a forensic engineer come in and the time delay, if we went back in time and you did that, and you did fix
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, in the time frame you did, would that be acceptable to the public?
I don't think so. Not, honestly, no.
That's
Unless
what
we could get somebody there immediately, and then, and only then, would they be able to return around and provide us a report in a quick enough time frame?
So this is
Yeah.
a hard lesson, and what's the solution if this happens again? How can we get someone there quick enough for you to both please
You're
the...
presupposing that the county would deny it again. Who
Well,
knows?
I think, is there a way to use this as a lesson to get somebody that can come on the spot and
Yeah.
give an independent opinion that the county will respect?
I do have one forensic engineer's
And-
business card that I picked up
Notch this in an
after this
expensive
event
lesson.
that I have in my office. But again, would they be able to pick up and come right away? I couldn't say with 100% certainty. And
I call these expensive
but there is
lessons.
definitely a time crunch on this, and hopefully both parties would come to the table in good faith, and we would come to a good conclusion. Just unfortunately, in this particular one, we just don't see eye to eye on it.
Well, I'm just saying, I have no problem with the fund balance as long as we use this as a hard lesson to figure out how to deal with this in the future, since, we have this, I think we could, it's like getting mad at your brother, the county. We're going to be partners with them forever. So, I think that it's a hard lesson, and we got to figure out how to deal with this in a quick manner, and I think it might mean a contract with somebody.
I don't disagree with you, Kevin. I think that, having a pre-approved or pre-arranged contract is probably advantageous for both parties. In the event we have this kind of issue occur again, I've been here for a pretty good while. We've never really had this disagreement
happened
before.
before. That's
Hopefully, it
different.
won't ever come up again, and,
But our roads are aging,
Yeah, I think it's going
They
to come
are.
up again.
Those
you know,
water lines
as
are
are the water
1970.
lines underneath there. So there are going to be continued leaks and problems through no fault of
Yeah.
anybody particularly. It's just a matter of, are you going to accept responsibility for the damages done or not?
And we clearly, as you pointed out, we have to be on top of it quickly to satisfy the community. It's probably just worth a discussion as we go through our budget about what, is this resource available and what would it cost? And we can make a better decision at that time. But so therefore, I move to approve ordinance 1903, amending the general fund budget to replace asphalt patching funds in streets and grounds.
Second.
We have a motion by Judy Davis and a second by Jack Farrell. Is there any discussion?
Could we amend it that you come up with a procedure as part of this?
Yeah, I originally, honestly, initiated some conversations with Randy Gould about, could we come up with a methodology by which we would deal with
I'm
these?
asking to amend it to that.
And I think he had a little bit of reluctancy because of, and maybe rightfully so, because of perhaps the varied nature of the various things that could happen in how they happen and those kinds of things. But I think at the end of the day, an independent third-party engineer would probably be the best way, I think, to try to address that kind of a disagreement. Neil Smith Engineering is nearby. They're in Southern Pines, and there are other forensic engineers, but I think we could probably, with the county, agree in advance that we would go to this particular engineer as an agreed-upon source to resolve a disagreement of that nature, but it's got to be done quickly.
So is that a friendly amendment? Is everybody okay with that or not?
I don't know that we need to
I
amend
don't
the.
think we need to
okay.
amend it.
I think what I could do, though, is I could still approach Randy with that concept, and we
Okay.
could do a letter of agreement that would stipulate that's how we would resolve an issue perhaps where we don't necessarily agree.
Okay, thank you.
And I do encourage you to see if there's a way that they can contribute something in this.
Well, I think that I had a very brief conversation, among a lot of other conversations, with Frank Quiss, and he really had only a very brief description of the event. So I think it wouldn't be out of line for, say, Mr. Baldry and I to meet with the chair and the vice chair. We probably have a number of issues we can talk about. This could be one of them in a friendly manner, because certainly, you know, they're a water provider. They will be, they always will be. And so we can just kind of chat about, you know, this event that was, you know, very serious, and, you know, fortunately, we do have the fund balance to cover it, but we can do that. And,
Move it behind us, just
Yeah.
figure out how to get behind this issue with the county and move on.
right, exactly. So we've had a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? If not, let's vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. That's unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
And,
Thank you
As
both.
I added on the last time, and I'll just state again, you know, this disagreement is about an issue, and it's not, you know, there's not a personality conflict or anything like that. We still have great relationships with the county
Absolutely.
personnel and work very well with them, and
Absolutely.
have no reason to believe we will not continue to do so.
Okay,
thanks.
thank you, Jeff. Okay, the item 14, that's probably Mark. Here he comes. Okay. Oh, okay.
If Barbara tells me this is okay.
Michelle, are you a polo cross player?
I try to be.
Okay,
My daughter is actually the player.
okay.
Yeah.
Does this sound okay, Barbara? Okay. All right, thank you. Obviously, staff received a request from the Polo Cross Club. This is actually to renew a previous agreement that we had back in 2013. This predated our current sponsorship policy that's in place now. Back in 2013, the Polo Cross Club made a donation to the village and the Parks and Recreation Department, $3,750. This was to help fund the construction of the judges' stand that's on the mile track infield, and that also helped pay for some practices that they did throughout the year. In return for that donation, they were able to hold practices throughout the year. They brought 2 tournaments a year. They also hosted the regionals or the nationals. It was
Yes.
the regionals
Yeah.
back during that time. We allowed them to have a storage locker down in Barn 10, and obviously they try to promote the facility. Basically, they call the harness track their home field throughout the year. So this request today is similar. They want to renew that agreement. They want to be able to use the mile track infield for practices throughout the year. No charge for those is what they're looking for. They do intend to keep their 2 tournaments a year. They're hoping to bring back a national tournament in 2020. They want to bid on that and try to make Pinehurst the national site for that. They want to continue that storage locker in Barn 10 that they have now, and they want to continue to help promote the harness track, offer demonstration events when they can, do some special events, maybe some one-day tournaments, bring in some food trucks, try to do more type events. If you recall, at 4th of July fireworks this year, they had a demonstration out in the middle of the kind of the activities for fireworks this year. Not sure that that's what we'll do again, but maybe some other one-time events throughout the year, just to try to help build awareness for their sport that they do. And if you've ever seen it, it's a great event. It's pretty neat to go out there and watch that. So I'll let Michelle kind of tell you a little bit more about what they would like to do and about her club.
My name is Michelle Lahr. I am the current secretary and tournament organizer for CPC, which is Carolina Polo Cross. The majority of our members are longtime Moore County residents, and our members range from the age 12 to 75 years old. So we have a wide range of fans, players. If you've ever been out to any of our tournaments, we get quite a bit of spectators. And our problem has always been follow-up. Everybody wants to, when can we come back? And so making the track our home field and being able to schedule, okay, we have practice on every other Sunday, or we're going to have a beginner. We've had beginner clinics where we invite people to come out and just give it a try during one of our practices. So that's what our goal is. We are looking to continue the working relationship with the track in the Village of Pinehurst. We want to continue. We are going to have our 2 major tournaments every year. We will have our May tournament and our September tournament here. We're putting in a bin for nationals. Regionals will be here September this year. We're hoping to offer small play days, which will be low-key, just trying to get new people starting and playing. We do have a group in Greensboro as well, but they travel here to be with us. Just to promote the sport and get as many people out there as possible. We would like to have free access of the field at least twice a month for practices and clinics. These dates would be pre-approved through the track manager to make sure nothing else was going on. They usually last about 3 hours on a Sunday morning. We're in and out, we clean up, we leave, we try not to make, nobody even knows we're there half the time except for the people walking on the track. We've worked well with the standardbred trainers. We try to stay out of their way as much as possible. We would like to keep our locker in Barn 10. We just have a small locker where we keep our field supplies in there. We're in a building process right now. A lot of our kids went to college and they're no longer playing, or their parents aren't going to play because the kids aren't playing. So we're just trying to get exposure. And being able to have that practice field is huge for us. That's about it. Like I said, we enjoyed doing the 4th of July this year. That was so much fun. We had so many people coming up just wanting to pet the horses. And we've looked into doing some charity events this year, maybe doing 2, kind of like a polo match where they have 2 separate charities and the money splits between the charities, just to get awareness of the facility. It's a great facility and we enjoy using it. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Now, Mark, you said that this falls under Category C?
I believe it would, simply because they are a nonprofit, so their tournaments do raise funds, so it would fall under Category C. So you could approve this being the first kind of its event under the new policy, and then going forward, this would just renew annually.
Okay, all right.
Michelle, a couple questions?
Sure,
Did you have
sure.
more?
Oh, yes, please.
What is the term of this sponsorship? Is it forever, or is it 1 year or 2 years? What is it?
Typically, once council approves a sponsorship like this, it is approved going forward unless there's any significant changes, either by the group or if the staff sees something that changes in the setup of their activities or events, then we would bring that back to council to review, and then we would look at the scope of that.
So it would be an annual request and the village manager could approve, is that correct?
That's right.
And then, is this year-round? Like 2 times a month practices is year-round, is that correct?
Yes, sir. We try. I mean, of course, the last couple months, the weather has been horrendous, but
Year-round as allows.
yeah, we
as allowed.
actually have 3 members of our club that have made the World Cup team.
Oh.
So we're trying to continue practices for them throughout the winter. They have to have 6 horses fit. So, I mean, we haven't been able to because of the weather, but we do like to try and continue year-round as much as possible.
I've seen it's pretty fantastic, to tell you the truth. So, Mark, a question to you. What is the total value of the sponsorship on an annual basis, approximately?
In terms of a practice, they roughly run 150 per day. So if you're given 2 of those a day, or 2 a month, sorry, yeah, 250 a month. So I didn't bring my phone up here because it would mess up the microphone, but I can't do the quick math in my head. My wife's the math teacher, not me, but what's that, 1,000 for the practice, 1,250?
$250 per month, you said?
Yeah, 250 a month. Jeff Batten.
That's about
$3,000.
almost $3,000, a little under $3,000. So
Yeah, so my math was terrible, so, as I said, my wife's the math teacher.
That is the value of the sponsorship.
Yes, sir. Yeah, because they pay in full for the tournaments, for the field rental, for any usage that they have for those.
Okay. Well, we all need to go out and see a polo cross match. I know I do.
We actually shot a wonderful promotional video here in Pinehurst last year, and if I can get it, Mark, I think I can send it to you. But it's all shot through aerial photography at the
I'd like
track.
to see that.
You get to see the whole facility. They interviewed tons of players. We had the South Africans here at that time, so they interviewed them as well. So it's pretty neat to see the facility in a large scale like that.
Kevin, this kind of falls under your, let's use the track for other things.
Sure, I'd love seeing that thing used. And I saw you on 4th of July. That was cool. But are you recommending approval of this, Mark? Can I ask you that?
I don't recommend
You don't?
approval,
Oh, you don't
but
do that?
I merely provide you
I
the
just like-
information
I
so
like
you can
hearing
make an
staff
informed
input.
decision. But, you know, obviously, the harness track is a facility that we're trying to make sure that we have events and awareness, and the more groups that we have down there doing things that can go out and talk to other folks and
Exactly.
that are in the equestrian industry that can potentially bring more events in is never a bad thing, so.
Along the lines of Kevin's comments, you know, we always, every year, we wrestle with the financial situation of the harness track facility. And we always say, boy, it would be nice to diversify that business opportunity down there. And I'd like to look at this as an opportunity to maybe grow a future business. And sometimes that takes a little bit of investment.
That's fair.
But
I think-
if you think about the prospect of bringing tournaments here and stuff that may have revenue opportunities for us down the road, I think that this might be smart.
We are looking into doing kind of a summer series where we do like the one-day play days type thing, and we're not asking for the field use free for that. It's just for our practices. So, I mean, that would be another $300 that we could bring in if we could, you know, use it for 2 days on a weekend. We have a sister club in Maryland, and we were going to try and do a series with them. So we're trying to build the sport as well as the facility because we really, really enjoy the facility. I want to be
I'd
able
like to see
continue
that
to use
video,
it.
too.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
I think
Pinehurst has been hosting polo tournaments in some way, shape, or form
Yeah.
for, who knows, 100 years.
And they're actually doing a charity polo match in Southern Pines this year. So we were kind of thinking, well, we could piggyback on that and do a charity polo cross match.
Where are they doing that in Southern Pines?
I think it's at one of the fields on the foundation,
Oh, okay.
right there
Moss.
off of Youngs Road.
Thurmos.
Mark, it looks like the provision, all dates and times will be approved by the track manager prior protects us really well.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, like Michelle's been coordinating with me right now while I've been filling in down there. So we've got all their practice dates right now on the schedule in addition to the tournament. So that would flow through the new track superintendent once they're on board.
Sounds good. Any more questions? Are we ready for a motion? Do we need a
I
motion?
move to approve the request for sponsorship for Carolina Polo Cross Club.
Second.
We have a motion by Jack Farrell and a second by John Baldry. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, if not, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
That's
Michelle.
unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to come see you sometime. I wanna see
Anytime.
this.
Anytime.
Okay, next, I think Mark's going to stay right where he is.
Going to come hand you something first while Marvin Waters and maybe another gentleman comes up to the table with him.
You got the short straw tonight, last on the list.
I know,
Kevin,
sorry
we'll
about
make, we'll
that.
make it quick.
I did give him a warning to not show up at 4:30 because I thought this might run a little late, but they
Yeah.
still came early, so. I passed out a map for you. This is just something that might be a little helpful to the discussion here as we get to that point. That just shows you kind of some available parking spaces downtown, should we get to that point a little bit later here. But this request is in regards to, the Sand Hills Motoring Festival and their request for an event Memorial Day weekend. This would be Saturday, May 25th and Sunday, May 26th. And they are looking for a sponsorship that would involve use of Tufts Park and the lawn area there for Saturday and Sunday, the 25th and 26th. They are also requesting use of the village stage on those 2 days, and equipment support that would include road barricades, traffic cones, recycling bins for those 2 days. This is basically Marvin can probably explain it a little bit better than I am, but this is a new version or a reforming of what was previously known as the concourse, but it is a new group, so new event, so it's similar to that for you. This involves Mercedes-Benz and Porsche. Did I say that
This year, those are
correctly?
the featured marks, that's correct.
This is primarily for local automobile clubs, so their idea is Saturday night that they would be downtown in the village. They would have kind of a VIP event in the village green. They would encourage those clubs to be downtown in the village, patronizing the restaurants downtown. They're potentially planning a wine walk type event so that they could have something going on downtown. And then Sunday would be the actual concourse in the streets of the village. The idea is to use existing parking spaces, the hardscape downtown, for the event, to have the cars there. And that's where it probably gets a little tricky for us, I think, to see how we can manage that. That's one of the reasons why I gave you the map, so you could kind of have an idea of the available parking spaces that we have down there and what that impact might be on downtown. And I don't know if they have a copy of that. I can give you mine so that you can look at that as well. But basically, I think one of the big challenges for this is going to be how we can manage that size of an event, whether they end up with 100 cars, 200 cars, depending on what the size and scope of this would be. Now, ultimately, we do still need to get facility reservation forms and a temporary use permit for that, which we have gotten to Mr. Waters in the last week, so they're going to work on those forms and get to us. Now, initially, you'll recall, and in my memo, we have this as a Category C, with the impression that they were a nonprofit group, but as it turns out, they're not a registered nonprofit, so I would categorize them now as under a Category B. The way our sponsorship policy is, it references either a nonprofit or a commercial entity. So with not being a registered nonprofit, I think that does make them a commercial entity under our sponsorship policy. I do think the intent of the event, though, is a not-for-profit venture. They do indicate that they give their proceeds. The majority of those do benefit the automotive program at Sandhills Community College. With that, Marvin, I'll turn it over to you, and I'll bring you this map so you can reference this if council has questions about that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark. And I'd like to thank the mayor and the village council for your time today. Mark was right on the money with our event. Although we're not going to replace the Concours. In all honesty, we wish the Concours was still here. That event was very successful. In its 5 years run, it really showcased the village of Pinehurst, and they did a wonderful job, and we wish they were still here. Our event is a little bit more than a local event. It's a regional event. Last year, we had attendees from Florida up through Georgia, South Carolina, into Virginia, Washington, D.C. area, and Maryland. Mark was right on the money. Our idea is to, we picked what we thought was an agreeable weekend. Memorial Day weekend is typically a quiet weekend. I'm a 15-year Pinehurst resident, and I've been the general manager at Little River Golf and Resort for 15 years, so I've got my finger on the pulse of busy weekends around here, and that one's not very busy. Our idea was to build an event that over time may replace the Concours down the road. But in the meantime, last year our event attracted 160 people and about 70 automobiles.
And where did you hold it last year?
It was primarily held at Little River,
Okay.
Outside of the car show piece that was on the Village Green.
Okay.
This year, we are hoping to grow the event, and we will grow the event. We expect 125 automobiles. And we would hope to display those in the village, on the streets, on streets that would benefit any businesses that are open and would give plenty of room for people that travel through the village and go to the village chapel and any other businesses that are open. Last year, we did donate in excess of $5,000 to the Sandhills Community College Foundation. They distribute their funds through an agreement with us to the Automotive Technologies curriculum. And we're not a non-for-profit company, we're an LLC, but our mission statement is to donate every dollar that we raise to the Sandhills Community College Foundation. And that hasn't changed at all for this year. Steve Redwine was a founder with me, along with Bill Faison, who is here. Bill and Steve are from Raleigh. I'll let Steve speak for a moment to the Mercedes piece, and then we'll field any question. Jack, I know you had some questions, and I think we got answers to you on those, but we can chat about any of that.
Okay.
Thank you, Marvin. The last 3 times that the Concours were here, one of the things that we did, we just showed up on that Saturday. We had a great time. We said, you know, we need to be doing more in Pinehurst. It's a jewel. So why not spend the whole weekend here, not just Saturday? So that's what we started doing. And so I was president of the Mercedes Club. So we said, let's just start inviting other Mercedes in the area and all throughout the East Coast. And so we did that. We had a great following. We built a 3-day program around a 1-day event, which was the Concours on Saturday. And they liked what we offered. We do road trips, road rallies, tours. We do tours of local businesses like your SLR, Sportlight Restoration Services. It's one of the premier restoration companies in America. Happens to be right here. And so we did all of those little side trips and making it more interesting, and they really loved it. They came back. The first year we had 40 cars, about 40 cars, and then, 13 the first year on the field, but then after that we built it to 40 cars. And so last year, which was our first year of Sandhills Motoring Festival, we had 156 participants coming from all over, like Marvin said, and some coming even from Colorado to be in the event. Now, those were Mercedes Club officials, but they wanted to come in to see what we were doing. We heard from the president of the Mercedes Club that he wants to come back. He wants to come this year to see what's going on. So that's what we've done. We're enthusiasts. We wanted to build something around a major event. So now we have become that event, but we still haven't lost sight of what brought us here. And that was bringing in other car enthusiasts that would want to do a lot of things in and around Pinehurst. And so I've actually had people call me, and because we haven't really advertised anything, because we're really waiting to hold up for everything to get done. But I've had people call me, when is it going to happen? What are you going to do? Because we're ready to come down again. Because this is really for the people in the northern part of the eastern region. It's the first time that they're able to get out with their cars and do something. So we invite those people to come down. We also invite people who are coming back from Florida, who stay in Florida for the wintertime. We say, stop in Pinehurst, stay with us for the weekend. It's a great break, and then go up to the Northeast. So we really try to promote Pinehurst because it is a jewel, and it's something that's right in our backyard, and we're trying to promote it and also work with Sandhills Community College to make sure that every dime we raise goes to them. We're just enthusiasts. We're business people, but this is not our business. This is our passion.
That's great. That's great. Jack, do you have some questions?
Yeah, the stage. I mean, what would be the purpose of the stage? I mean, the stage it's not a trivial matter for the village to install the stage. It would have to be put up on a Friday. It would stay there, probably put up on a Friday. It would stay there Saturday, Sunday, Monday, maybe come down on Tuesday. So it's, is it really necessary, or do you need just a platform to announce winners and so forth?
Well, Jack, I think it is necessary. It would be used to announce some winners. It would be used for the invocation. It would be used for a master of ceremonies as a central point for all announcements versus having a PA system throughout the village. It makes more sense to have one person working from the stage that's going to start the event, announce the winners, and finish the event.
Well, it sounds like the stage would only be used for a cumulative time of no more than 10, 20 minutes.
No, we'd use it throughout the event, throughout the day, for announcements to keep everything moving.
Hard pressed to see the value there, but that's just me, so. We all talked about where to stage this, and I think that's a little tricky, but considering that we have to be sensitive to that is a residential, semi-residential area in the
Sure.
neighborhood, and I know you know that. What streets, or is it too early to talk about what streets you were considering using?
Well, you're right, Jack. We want to stay away from anything that has to do with the village chapel. We don't want to be intrusive in any way. We're really just hoping to benefit the businesses that are open. If you look at Market Square and
Chinkapin there, probably.
and Chinkapin, essentially those areas, of the 353 parking spaces, we're looking for roughly 125 parking spaces. So if you're around Chinkapin, Market Square, we're close to 100 spots there, and we're away from the major thoroughfare coming through the village. It is early. We've had the map a few days now, and we are over the next week or so going to go have a look and get it dialed in.
Yeah, it is too early, to get that level of detail.
Right.
You have discussed the fact that there may be some private property involved relative in front of the department store, for example, and the theater building, and that may have to be discussed with the owner.
Yeah, we have. We would speak to Marty and
Okay.
let him know what's going on.
Good, so you know about that.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's important. So I'm going to ask Mark the same question I asked before. What is the cumulative number of dollars that we would be providing here gratis?
Well, in
I
regards
mean, I
to
know
the
it's sort of an
stage,
estimate now, but.
yeah, in regards to the stage first, there is no rental fee for the stage because when we bought the stage, it was with the understanding that it would not be rented out. So I can't give you a number for our stage. I can tell you that stage typically, when we used to rent a stage before we bought it, was $1,900 per event. So that's how much it would cost the village to do that.
Implied value is sort of that, yeah.
That's correct. So if you want to put that number on it, for us, our direct cost to put that stage out there, you're talking 2 staff, plus equipment to take it out on Friday and then come back Monday or Tuesday to get it. So you have we've gotten pretty good at it in terms of our efficiency. So we can put it up in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So 4 hours, we could put $1 on that if you want for that staff time. But in terms of the cost for Tufts itself, you're going to look at $600 to $750. Depends on where exactly is the Motorin Festival based out of in terms of your LLC? Is it based out of Little River, or is it based out of your home here in Pinehurst?
No, it's based out of a building and a piece of property that I own in Aberdeen.
Okay.
And Jack, you asked where any trucks and trailers would be stored. It'd be stored there.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
So from that standpoint, the fees to rent Tufts Park for both days would be $750. And then the temporary use fees, and I'm estimating these because, again, we don't have your application yet. We don't know if there would be any street closures involved, but I would estimate that those would be a maximum of $350. So all told, you're looking at $1,100, not inclusive of the stage.
Well, I guess we could consider this a contribution to the Sand Hills Community College then.
You certainly could.
For the
In
autumn-
essence,
Exactly.
of course, we could
One-
bypass the middleman, just give it directly to, but it's probably better to do it this way.
Once removed, yeah. So I have a question about the map. So the cars that would be parked here, are these for the people that are attending the motocross? Is that,
No, these would be the folks that have paid the fee to be involved in the 3-day event.
right,
These are the show vehicles.
right. So you're having them parked around town, is that the idea?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, versus putting them all in the green?
Correct.
Well, the policy now is there are
Right,
no
and
no
that's a-
automobiles allowed on the
No
green. Is that
That's a
correct?
staff decision because we've made that decision going forward that we're not going to allow vehicles to park on the green itself.
So this, on the 99, that looks like it's around the Village Green up toward the library, that's going to be on the, on the road, really?
Yeah, I think that
Sand lot.
99 in the green is actually the parking lot for the Tufts Park itself. What used to be the sand lot, correct?
And the
Now it's
logical
the
place to have these
base
vehicles
gravel
is
lot.
in front of the stores, obviously, or, you know, whatever
We
stores
we
that might
think
be
they
open.
show better there. We think it benefits any shop owner for sure.
And although there may be 46 spaces on Chinkopin, by spacing the cars so people can actually see them, you may only effectively be able to use 30 or something of that nature. It's hard to say.
Likely, yes.
I think it's a great sounding event.
Yeah, good, thank
I
you.
think it'd be a good time to get the drone out to take a picture of all those cars out there.
No doubt.
But I just, for perspective, you know, being someone that goes there Sunday morning, there's nobody there.
And
So I
that's,
thought I should give that perspective.
Yeah.
There's nobody there. So,
we should give a heads up to the businesses.
yeah.
That there will be a lot of people in town, and there are some businesses who will open, and there are some who will not. Restaurants are almost always open on Sundays, so I think it's, Steve, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah.
Just wanted to say that when you think of what we're trying to do in the village of Pinehurst on the streets, there's also a little village in California called Carmel. Quaint village.
Mr. Bouldry knows about that.
Okay. Not as nice as Pinehurst, but they have what
And see,
they
I
call-
grew up on the Monterey Peninsula, and I would say that Pinehurst is really, really a great place, and we'll put Carmel second.
Okay, all right.
It's very affordable to stay, to live right here. Yeah.
Exactly.
They may have better weather at times, but anyway, so they have Concours in the streets of Carmel. And it's part of the whole week of Auto Week for Pebble Beach. And this is something that we're trying to bring here to create that same ambiance, you know, calling it the Concours in the village, but it's really a whole special presentation, and it's really neat. It's kind of hard to visualize when you're thinking, well, I've got the retailers that may object because they may be losing business. But I got to tell you, I went for the first time to Carmel, the streets of Carmel this past year, and I saw nothing but massive people going in and out of the shops, buying, you know,
Right.
it was really a great event, and it's something that they put on for the last 15, 20 years. And so we're looking to bring that type of ambiance here as well.
And Kevin, just to speak to your comment, one of our sponsors is a film company from Hilton Head, and they'll be here with the drone, and that's a piece that we hope to produce and share with the village going forward.
And if you've been to the village, or the Concours in Hilton Head, it's pretty upscale.
It is.
It's a big crowd, yeah.
Absolutely,
Right.
yeah.
And I would, you know, I understand what you're saying about the stage, Jack, but the one thing I would say the stage does is elevate an event.
Yes.
It goes from this event to this event when it has a stage. So that I would say that's what the stage accomplishes. Without it, you know, you don't have, I guess, you know, the cachet.
And also, it's just another branding medium for that weekend, you know, that's very visible.
Right.
So,
Incredible.
yes.
The two events we've heard today is certainly the Marvin Yours and also Polo Cross. If you think in combination with Shakespeare in the Pines, we're developing a great magnet of activities to draw people to our village of Pinehurst. So I think in how it gets marketed, but the three events are different events and would bring a different set of supporters, participants, and other visitors who would want to come and take a look at us. So this is I think what you both have proposed is very encouraging, and it's I think great in the long term for the long term events here in the village of Pinehurst.
Economic opportunities, for sure.
Good. Yep, John, we agree. We think the Mercedes and the Porsche Club are demographically suited to come back and play golf and enjoy the village, so.
maybe while they're here, yeah.
have the requirements of the logo and stuff with this event? I don't see that in here.
Yeah, we would send that to them so that it could be put on in their request. I
Make it a
think
branding.
they would make the village a title sponsor. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's
Yes.
correct, yeah.
Okay, any more questions about the Sandhills Motoring Festival?
I
Okay.
move to approve the request for sponsorship for the Sandhills Motoring Festival.
Second?
We have a motion by Judy Davis and a second by Jack Farrell. Is there any additional discussion? If not, let's vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Thank you very much. That's unanimous.
Thanks, Marvin.
We're
Perfect.
looking
Thank you very
forward-
much. We appreciate it.
Forward to it. Don't
Thank you.
forget, remind the merchants to be open. Definitely. Yeah,
Mr. David Warnoff's going to help us with that, so.
good.
Good for him.
We shall.
Will.
We shall.
It's a strange phenomenon that holiday weekends, we're not busy. I
Yeah,
don't
it
understand that phenomenon, but they're right,
Yeah.
it's a slow weekend.
Okay, next on our agenda is other business. Do any council members have any other business that needs to come before us? Okay, hearing none. Next is comments from attendees. Any attendees wish to make a Tom wants to make an, that's okay, that's
You might
fine.
want to use the mic.
You might want to sit down.
Cut off, Tom.
We were just testing you.
I'm unconscious part of the time.
Okay,
Anyway, when you were talking about the fund balance, and I think Kevin made a very good observation, and that is, what better use of the fund balance? And it takes me back historically. I always like to go back to time. And in 2000, when we had that giant snowstorm,
yes. 18 to 20 inches of
we
snow.
had one snowplow and Andy Wilkeson driving around in a Jeep with something on the front to help.
Yeah,
And the cleanup went for a month or two after that because of all the limbs down and everything. The council at that time said, we don't have enough fund balance for emergencies like these. And so they incrementally raised the fund balance from less than 8%. I think the 8% was the requirement, and we weren't quite there. And so I believe that's correct. But at any rate, I just wanted to make that comment. And the fund balance, I can't think of a better use of it than this situation so that you don't get in a fight
that's
over
right.
who's paying for it.
That's right. Thanks,
Thanks, Tom.
Tom Campbell. Fund balance is for emergencies, opportunities, and to get a really good bond rating if you need to borrow money, which we haven't for a while. Okay. Do we have any other attendees who wish to make a comment at this time? Okay. If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Second?
Second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're going to adjourn for a little comfort break.